What is up, Scar Knight, bringing you the award show for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It has been a while since I've done an award show like this, but I might as well be late than never, right? I don't know why it took me this long, cause like, looking back at my logic with everything, cause the whole reason it took me a while for Donkey Kong 64, and the whole reason I like revamped the thing was to have it its own playlist of award shows and all that. You know, if you notice, there hasn't been a bonus episode of Donkey Kong 64 or let alone Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's because, yet again, as I mentioned before in like other projects, that Emerald Legends hasn't been completed and I'm working on it. You know, even though I have been procrastinating on it. I will get it done eventually, I promise, and then all these bonus episodes will come to fruition. I'm just very, very behind, as you know, evident of this award show by itself. But yeah, I thought this was the perfect time to do it, because I look back and I was all like, wait, it was Donkey Kong 64 award show in the VUR? You know, just in case you're new, a VUR is Vlog Update Randomness, where I just put just a random video of mine that fits in one of the three categories that isn't its own theme, because like I don't put like top 10s and theories in the VURs, if that makes sense. It's been a really long time since I have done that, and it's gonna be a bit different because even though I had done a Legend of Zelda game for an award show, it's not gonna be quite the same, because I was really having a hard time coming up with 4 awards. 3 of them are more fairly obvious to me. It's the 4th one that I don't know. So we'll just start with that first one. And all you have to do to vote is either put it in the comments or go to any of my social medias, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, whatever thing you can get a hold of me. Even you could even tell me in person, you know, via helicopter or however the hell you're gonna find me. As long as I hear about it from your vote, it will count, and that will count for the whole vote thing. But as I was saying, like, yeah, this is the perfect timing, because since I'm like doubling up with Vedlock and all that, you know, in this slot of the schedule, it is the random video, so it's perfect, because I wasn't sure what other random video I was gonna do. I was this close to doing something a bit different, but we might save that for a rainy day. But without further ado, let's get started with award number 1. Now, of course, I should probably mention, because like it's not the straight up award show, it's just the nominees, of course, just voting for what you think. But the first nominees for the first award would be Best Item. And yeah, this is, like I said, the one that I had trouble picking, because the other one would be Best Mask for when it comes to Majora's Mask. And I think best items would fit perfectly fine, since most of the items are kind of parallel to most of the other games. They all have the same items, but I'm pretty sure I'll come up with something different with the other Legend of Zelda games, you know, until I do cross those paths when I get there, you know, when I cross that bridge. I'm not gonna name all the items, but you'll see them right here of something that I could point out. You know, some certain good items would be like the hook shot and long shot, that comes to mind. The dense fire is a personal favorite of mine. Megaton hammer has its uses. The big Goron sword, there's like loads and loads of great items, and it's pretty much anything you could find in the equip menu to like just the item menu. You could use any of those, whatever is your favorite. I know, for example, in Twilight Princess, probably one of my favorites is the double claw shot to like the Beyblade spinner itself, which is really fun as an item. So it should be interesting what you guys pick for these certain items. So put it in whatever social media or even the comment section below on what is your pick for the favorite item. Award number 2 for the nominees is gonna be Best Temple / Dungeon. It's probably just gonna say Best Dungeon, but you know what, that works too. I always say either temples, I barely ever say dungeons, but it's fair to just put all of them, because you know, obviously not everything's a temple, right? So I will list these ones. The only thing that I won't share is probably the final dungeon of everything, because you know, most people would pick them. But I think in this case there's gonna be other favorites of people's, I would say. So yeah, starting with the Great Deku Tree, followed with the Dongo's Cavern, and Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. And then sometimes people at this point has access to go to the bottom of the well. I'm not really sure if I should share that, but you know what? Bottom of the well is a dungeon. I just not really ever sure where to put it in this list, because in every Let's Play, they do it at their own order wherever they want it to be, you know. After that would be the Forest Temple. I'll stick to the regular order, being the Fire Temple next, along with the Water Temple, which I guess if we are talking about orders, goes along with the Ice Cavern, into the Spirit Temple, and the Shadow Temple. I was pretty close on saying, like, you know, dungeons that aren't temples themselves, but I thought I'd just join them all together with best dungeon and all that. I would say Great Duka Tree's always had like an important part, like, in a temple, because that's the start of the journey, and there's like a certain feeling I have when I'm doing that dungeon, and with any type of run, like especially a speed run, there's like a certain thing that feels very satisfying, you know, saving the Great Duka Tree and all. Or, you know, what could have been a save of the Great Duka Tree. Dodongo's Cavern, I really like the fact that, like, the glowing eyes of the giant skull of the Dodongo, since, like, the King Dodongo of before was much, much bigger, it seems. Lord Jabu Jabu's belly, honestly, isn't really my personal favorite, but it's still a unique dungeon to have, I would say so. You know, curing him of his disease. But I'm not really sure of the fate of Lord Jabu Jabu. It's kind of assumed that he's dead in the future. But it's not about what's my personal favorite or my personal least favorite. You know, you shouldn't have my opinion be a factor to your guys' own personal choice on these nominees. The bottom of the well has always been really scary and all that. You know, a lot of people do like horror, and there's a reason I had a guest in that episode specifically, but it's interesting nonetheless. As for the Forest Temple, it is really cool to have like the 4 Pose sisters just separate with the torches and then put together. Fire Temple is one of my personal favorites, I would say. Saving the Gorons all Zoro style and stuff. The Water Temple, oh my god. By itself, it is the hardest dungeon, period. I know people personally that had problems with this dungeon on its own. The Ice Cavern though would be a very interesting choice. I don't hear too many people say that this one's their personal favorite. But if you are out there, I would like to hear from you. That would be really interesting to see if people do like the Ice Cavern being their favorite, and I want to see why as well. Originally, they did want to make an Ice Temple by itself, along with the Wind Temple, but we'll get to that when we get to that. For the Spirit Temple, not only do you go from the past, but you also go from the future, completing this dungeon in 2 separate parts, almost symbolically in a way, and I think that's really cool. And its own religion too, not even related to the Triforce religion where everybody worships the royal family. So it's really interesting. It's kind of in the enemy's territory in the Gerudo Desert. Just a second ago when I was talking about the Ice Cavern with the Ice Temple, the Shadow Temple has some certain spots that has Wind Temple elements because they wanted to make a Wind Temple on its own, but you see some wind mechanics throughout the temple, along with a lot of Shika insognia, I would say, along with a lot of royal family lore to it behind the scenes, you know, with the Eye of Truth and all that. And I do know some people that do like the Shadow Temple being their favorite. And every time I do play it, I kind of wonder where Impa is, because Sheik always implies that Impa's still out there trying to fight off everything, so I always found that a bit interesting. But yeah, those are all the dungeons. Like I said, we're not going to talk about the final dungeon, you know, and if people never played this before, then watch episode 1, please. It's just easier. Just click here on the eye in the corner. I know that everybody had played this before, but even if you have played this or seen other people play it, I mean, at least watch my Let's Play, you know. It's going to be a little bit different, and it would kind of balance more out to see a different perspective on Legend of Zelda, I would say, because there's some spots that I haven't seen other Let's Plays do, so I kind of want to see what you guys think. But it would also be interesting too, because like there's like a whole light temple as well that's been speculated, that in a way people think that the final temple pretty much is, but besides the fact, pick who you think is your best temple or best dungeon in your personal opinions, whatever factors they may be. Just don't let my factor and my bias be like a factor of your own vote, if that makes sense. This is another nomination that I was trying to think of for the next award, because I wasn't really sure what else, but I think I settled on it, and that is Best Sage. So when it comes to Best Sage, I decided to do this, and it could be for a multitude of reasons. I'm not really sure too much if I should also include the medallions, because I was pretty close on like saying, oh, best medallion, but like that would be just based on design and looks, if anything. So I just decided to have it as a whole. What is the best sage in your guys' opinion? There is 6 sages, of course, or you could also... I don't know if I... Watch episode 1, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. I know it's been like years and years and years and people played Smash and they are revealed to that. But we'll just go down to the 6 sages. We're not gonna include anything further than that. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. There's other Legend of Zelda games that kind of have more than 6 sages, if you know what I mean. But of the 6 sages that we're introduced to, I mean, even still, I do kind of think that people won't vote for the extra sages, if you know what I mean, because I'm also thinking Wind Waker, but we'll just stick to Ocarina of Time. Is it Saria, the Forest Sage? Saria is one of our first friends. I was really happy for us when we got our fairy. Always been really nice to us. I always think in the back of my head, like if there was ever a movie, Saria's always the one that cared for us the most, while every other kid in the Corkery village basically bullied us for being different and not having a fairy. She was the one to send us away when we started our journey, and ever since then she even left us a contact with Saria's song to still get a hold of her whenever we needed help, pretty much. And I think that's pretty cool. Even though Link and Saria was never meant to be together, the bond of friendship is always stronger than most in this case. This sounds very corny, but like I can't help but think that it's like a symbolic relationship between the two. Is it the Fire Sage, Darunia, who's gonna be your vote? Darunia, based on brotherhood when it comes to him and Link, also with Darunia naming his son after Link, being Link of his own, hero of the Gorons, and like Link, the Dongo Buster and all that, with them two being 2 completely different species, with one being Hylian and the other one being Goron. The brotherhood is still closer than blood, so that's another special relationship. I would say that all of these have special relationships in their own right. It's kind of interesting now that I think about it. I never put that extra thought, but just saying it out loud, all these sages do have something special when it comes to Link, don't they? Now for this third nominee, it is the Water Sage, Princess Ruto, or is it Queen Ruto? I'm not really sure, because we do see the Queen of Zora, but we don't see a Queen of Zora. I guess the king is still alive, so I guess it is still Princess Ruto. But even though she annoyed us with like her like saying that she could take care of herself even though she was eaten by a literal whale and all that, she was kind of embarrassed and hoping that she would go unnoticed and unpunished when she retrieves her most prized possession, being the Zora Sapphire, aka the spiritual stone of water, which unbeknownst to Link, he didn't know that with him getting the Zora Sapphire from Ruto, that would be an engagement to being married to Princess Ruto. So, another special relationship of arranged marriages? I'm not really sure. I also don't really know where Ruto even went in the water temple, because we saw her again and she was all like, oh, you left me behind for 7 years. We were supposed to get married like the day after I said the proposal or whatever, and then she swam away and she straight up disappeared. So I don't know what that was about, but yeah, I mean, at least she tried to save the Zoras, because like I think what it was, that she was frozen and Sheik is the one that unfroze her, and she tried to do something, and that's where we met her inside the water temple. So yeah, at least she tried to do something. Will it be the fourth sage, Nabooru? I would say I feel like I know Nabooru the least, and that's safe to say. And it's kind of interesting on the choices of the developers of Ocarina of Time, because if you were just to let the game begin and not press anything immediately, you'll see the cutscene of Nabooru first, you know, with the two witches, Kume and Kotake. I always say Kotake instead of Kotake, so if it's Kotake, then whatever. But I always found that really interesting, that it's like the older Link with Nabooru being there. And I'm not really sure is exactly what the relationship is exactly here, because from the first time that we seen Nabooru, we seen her in the past, I guess? Because like we talked to her and she was trying to infiltrate Ganondorf's hideout, which was the Spirit Temple, and she wanted us to get the treasure for her, which was the gauntlets. As soon as we got that, she was found out by Kume and Kotake, and that they kidnapped her and all that. And it wasn't like till the future that we found out that she was hidden inside an iron knuckle that was stronger than most other iron knuckles. So she was pretty much possessed. But then after we got the Spirit Medallion and we defeated Kume and Kotake, being Twin Rova, then like Nabooru was talking to us, and she was like really proud of us and really surprised how much of a handsome person we are grown up and all that. So I'm not really sure what the relationship there implies, but she seemed really worried for us as she was getting kidnapped. She was like, "Oh, Link, run away before they catch you." And you see Kume and Kotake going back in the Spirit Temple, even though they could both fly straight up to you, but I don't think they saw you. So yeah, I would like to think that they did went back inside the Spirit Temple of wondering who she was talking to. So they like just did kind of throughout security throughout the temple, but we were just on top of there the whole time and we just kind of teleported away. Really interesting nonetheless. Is it the Shadow Sage, Impa? Impa's a interesting relationship too. Not one that I don't know how to explain, like it's way different than like all the other ones combined. But she has some respect for us, because the first time we seen her, we sneaked inside Hyrule Castle by passing all the guards and going through the entrance of the fountain, meeting with Princess Zelda and talking to her, only to find that Impa was like, "What the hell are you doing here?" Whatever. But she was listening to Princess Zelda with her prophecy, and she was talking to us. She was being suspicious on us, wondering if Zelda is onto something, since she's the Princess of Destiny and all that. So she gave us Zelda's lullaby, which has some royal family properties to them. And then after, Impa kind of guided us to Death Mountain to get the next Spiritual Stone of Fire, because she was also impressed that we got the Spiritual Stone of the Forest. But nonetheless, Impa did rescue Princess Zelda when Ganondorf ended up killing the king and trying to go after her. You know, trying to reach the Ocarina of Time till Zelda threw it back into the water. That was after when Link and Ganondorf meet face to face for the first time, unlike going looking through the window or whatnot. But besides that, once we did defeated the Shadow Temple, when we heard that Impa was trying to salvage the village where she was from, you know, Chicago, that she was talking to us and she was really impressed on how far we came, you know, with all this prophecy being true, with her being one of the last members of the Sheikah and all that. So yeah, I don't really know where to place it in the relationship, because it's more of a special bond towards Impa and Zelda to have faith towards us, because she believes in Zelda. It's really weird how to explain that relationship. I'm sure one of you guys can explain it much better than I can. But there's the sixth sage, the light sage, Rauru. Which Rauru is a special relationship, a very interesting one, because I don't really know how this explains a lot. But Rauru used to take the form of an owl whenever he's in the overworld, in the real world I would say. once Link started his journey after he said goodbye to Saria by running off, that he met with this owl that gave Link all this advice, and whenever he would went a place too far or the right place, he would give him advice to get closer and closer, because he was onto Link and he knows that Link is the most important character in Hyrule, being the protagonist, of course, the chosen one, eventually being sealed for 7 years, this is the interesting part to me, because there's other Legend of Zelda iterations where like they do believe Link is good enough in his infancy and all that. But for this Link's case, it's like, oh no, you have to stay for 7 years. If you go out there as a 10-year-old child, Ganondorf is gonna whip your ass. But it's different for other games like Wind Waker and Link's Awakening and Link to the Past. Like all these Links, perfectly fine that they're 10. You know, they could go fight the world, fight giants and all that shit. But this Link, no, you have to stay for 7 years. Like you need to develop some muscle, you know, go jog on the treadmill or something. So I'm not sure what that's about. I always found that weird when it comes to Rauru. He never gave a realistically good reason for Link to stay for 7 years. He just did it because he saw like it's not that time yet. So yeah, interesting nonetheless. Ever since that Rauru did reveal himself and he said that he did keep him for 7 years, and then he thought now is the time for Link to do something and all that, it's when he sent him out to his journey, and you don't really see Rauru all that much ever again, like as in now until the whole Spirit Temple thing once Nabooru was captured pretty much. But you don't see him till the future. But the owl doesn't speak. He kind of was in the cutscene and he just flies off, which I found interesting. Nonetheless, Rauru is basically one of the most important reasons why there's 3 different timelines, so I don't know what really that's about. Nonetheless, that's all the sages I'm going to talk about here today. I'm going to not spoil anything, even though you guys know Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time at this point. But nonetheless, I don't think you guys would have voted for the last or extra sages, but we may save that for another time. Anyway, let's talk about the last nomination, being Best Boss Battle. This is the real award. I always like covering Best Boss Battles. That's the best part of all games, is the boss battles. And I don't know if I should include mini bosses as well at certain dungeons. I'm not really sure. It's up to you guys, because I could put it as a vote, but you guys don't necessarily have to. I just don't really know, because I don't know if I should include the monster that's hidden in the bottom of the well. You can if you want to. It's optional. I don't think I can recommend voting for the Iron Knuckle or the White Wolfos in the Ice Cavern, but that's why I'm a bit hesitant. But yeah, it's optional. If that is your favorite, then go ahead and vote for them. But for the main nominations, the definite for sure nominees here is gonna be Goma, which Goma, being the Queen Goma, is the thing that essentially is responsible for killing the Great Deku Tree, even though of course Ganondorf is the one that planted it to begin with. Queen Goma is the first boss. Of course, all you have to do is aim for the eye, being its weak point. Whenever anything has one eye, being a Cyclops, that is always the weakness of it. But Queen Goma is always a very special boss, I would say. I like seeing Queen Gomas in any iteration, but yeah, very interesting nonetheless. The next boss of the Dongo Cavern is, of course, King Dodongo himself. Usually what I like to think with King Dodongo, he kind of reminds me of the dinosaur from like Star Wars 2, which I always kind of like link the two together, because there's like a spider character that reminds me of Goma and all that. And even though the little rat tiger thing doesn't at all look like the third boss, it still kind of has that neat connection that, you know, there's 3 of these characters, that 2 of them are so similar, and then there's the one oddball one. But nonetheless, King Dodongo, it's always really cool to face him. There's something really cool about him. His skin is really thick and is very durable, that you can't really use too many items against it. But his weakness is inside of him, because you have to throw bombs inside, and that's with the majority of the iterations of the games where you have to feed these Dodongos bombs in order for it to kill them, because their skin is iron-like, indestructible. And besides the bomb thing, it seems that the magma and the lava is also his weakness, because it kind of destroys itself more once it gets devoured in the lava and magma. So it's interesting nonetheless, because, you know, they live at a volcano. That's where you usually see Dodongos at, and most of them even breathe fire, if not all of them do. Nonetheless, the third boss, Baronade, is the virus that essentially is responsible for killing Lord Jabu Jabu. I'm just gonna assume that he's dead. The main virus that is kind of attached to these jellyfish and like electrical fields and could shoot out lightning and all that. We could also assume that Ganondorf kind of planted that in Lord Jabu Jabu in order to get the spiritual stone of water, but then Ruto's the one that hid it from him. And I'm pretty sure King Zora would have gave it away, because he seemed like you know, no pun intended, but like a beta fish. So, but yeah, Baronade. I don't think there was any other iterations. Again, like there was references, but I don't think straight off all the way identical links to it. Another no pun intended. Is it the next boss, Phantom Ganondorf, which I had explained a little bit before, but yeah, my headcanon kind of fits that, like Link 7 years into the future takes on Ganondorf from 7 years ago, because it looks just like him with this shorter hairstyle, because like the Ganondorf in the future has longer hair and obviously is more powerful, because all this time he's been like honing his craft because he knew one day that he would face Link. But yeah, this 7 years in the past, Ganondorf taking the form from this Phantom, taking on Link with this Deathman volley. It's always a really cool match, even though it's a certain distinct battle style, because he's like goes through paintings and all that and uses decoys. You know, eventually once he loses the horse, that's when he takes on you one-on-one. And sometimes I like to think that that's his actual horse, like that's Ganondorf's horse into battle that he let Phantom Ganondorf on, because you don't see the horse again, so I always found that pretty interesting. And then the next boss with Volvagia, we already talked about him, the hardest hitting boss. My god, he takes like 4 hearts away if you don't have defense. It is crazy. One of my favorite bosses for sure. He breathes fire, he's a straight up dragon. He knocks down rocks, he goes through lava pits. He is really hard to hit, because like you literally have to hit it directly into the skull, because it's not like his skull is fragile, but like it's not gonna take a megaton hammer hit, because it's literally a megaton to hit it over and over in the head with. It'll eventually break and crack Volvagia's skull in order for you to defeat him. It's a really cool battle, and I'm not really sure how Darunia fared against him, because there is some theory suggesting that Darunia died before Link had got there, because some people suspect once they go full on Sage and you see them in the Sage realm, that means that they're dead. I don't know if that's what it means. I kind of assume Raru's kind of dead already, because you know there's the owl form and you never see Raru in the real overworld, but nonetheless that is where Darunia ended up. And I don't know how, how he did fare against Volvagia, but I don't know if he weakened him down too much, man. Like Volvagia could take on both of us at the same time, and it'd still be really, really difficult. And then the next boss, Morpha. I think there's more references to Morpha than there is Baronade, because I remember there being Morpheal, and then like, I don't know, but there's another boss or whatnot. But Morpha, already in one of the hardest dungeons, or the hardest dungeon being the Water Temple, Morpha can be cheap sometimes, because there is a cheap trick to defeating him, is going in the corners between the spikes. But Morpha also is cheap, so it's okay to be cheap against the cheap, because he goes in there and if you're within reach of him, he could just strangle you, drown you underwater while hitting you, and then throw you off and possibly hit you on the spikes. Like in real life, if he throws you on those spikes, you're getting stabbed through and pierced through. Like that's pretty damn difficult. So yeah, Morpha, no joke. Yeah, Morpha is also responsible for taking all of the water in Lake Hylia. So yeah, that's very interesting. It's the whole reason why it's dried up. And I talked about these two already, but Kume and Kotake, Twin Rova, I do like this boss battle a lot. I really like that these are related to Ganondorf, like family-wise, that they're Gerudo themselves. They're both witches, fire and ice, and that they both fuse. I always did like that boss battle. It feels like it's a lot more important than anything else. And I also do like that they possessed Naburu and got her against us. And had her this whole time for 7 years. You kind of wonder to yourself if she played a factor throughout this whole time at all. But they had her in the back of their pocket and waited for us to do that and then made us go face her. But yeah, really, really interesting for sure. And the last boss that we're going to be covering is Bongo Bongo. There is some theories that suggest a lot about Bongo Bongo. Maybe that's going to be a theory video in the future. But yeah, a lot of Hylian and Shikar related stuff with Bongo Bongo. With the weird acid pit around this drum, while you fight him, he's got to be mostly invisible. All you would see is his two hands that are severed from his body. And of course, with the Lens of Truth, you can see him and try to hit him as much as you can. And I always like to think that it's his eye, even though it's an open wound in his neck. But yeah, Bongo Bongo can be also cheap because he could just hit you and like swing you around outside their drum, and then you'll be on the acid pit pretty much. But yeah, those are all the bosses, and that pretty much is all the nominations for all the awards. This video took on a while because there's a lot to talk about with Ocarina at a time. What do you guys think will win the vote? Put your favorite vote in the thing with all the social medias, and yeah, let me know about that. So yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to press that like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing. If you haven't considered subscribing yet, please watch another one of my videos. I play the video games, and if you like playing video games, you might like my stuff. With that being said, in the next video, we're gonna still continue doubling up with the Vetlock stuff, but after that, we'll eventually get back to the award show, and I'll let you know who the winners are. So hopefully you guys would vote, that I get enough votes, that is, and I'll try to rally them up. So yeah, white tigers and dragons to you, and you've been scarred by the night. I'm out.